Excellence in our industry comes from quality teams creating quality products. In an industry that's constantly evolving, it's your unwavering grit, determination, and passion that drives innovation and elevates standards to new heights. As brewers ourselves, we know what that passion looks like. It's the drive to create something exceptional, fueled by dedication and love for the craft. As a stainless steel equipment manufacturer for over 10 years, ABS Commercial provides a full consultative approach to our customers, from consultation and design to installation and ongoing care and maintenance. Whether you're in planning, just getting started, or looking to expand, we're here to support your growth and your success. Thank you for choosing ABS Commercial as your trusted partner.
Hello and welcome to how to start keeping score at your brewery. I'm Jamie Schild with ABay. I just like to start by saying thank you for being here. We love this community. Thank you, Amanda, for being our moderator in the background. Andrew, for setting all this up. The whole CBP community, I love you so much. Thank you for being here, whether you're live with me right now or you're watching on replay. Really appreciate you taking the time here to dive into a really important topic. That's your data, and that's keeping score, whether it's day in, day out, week in, week out, or monthly. So let's spend the next half hour really diving in here. I'm finding there's three key fundamental principles that are essential to allowing you to keep score properly. And by keeping score, I'm saying just understanding if you're winning or losing, bottom line financially. So let's dive in. And I'll try to stay a bit high level, and don't hesitate to comment or shoot me an email about any topics we could go deeper. We have a half hour here, so I can't go too deep into a specific topic, but we will have, there's QR codes at the start here and at the end for you to download the material. There's a QR code later for you to access my LinkedIn profile, where I'm an open book. I'm trying to provide incredibly valuable free resources to this entire community and solve really complex problems, like seeing day in, day out, are we winning or losing? So you can see here, I love this imagery here, but taproom versus wholesale. And on that wholesale side, are you losing profit, or is that foaming over the top? And all these other things are causing you to lose money. So by keeping score day in and day out, you're really able to understand, are you winning or losing? So all right, there we go. All right, agenda, brief intro to ABay, the power of keeping score, the fundamentals, and how to start today. I want to get you guys with takeaways on how to implement this day in, day out. Won't leave too much time for Q&A, but we only have half hour, so let's giddy up. All right, so like I said, I'm Jamie Schild, founder of ABay, started it back in 2020. Carl Laufenberg joined me soon after, and we have doubled our team size with two of the most brilliant minds that I've ever worked with, Jim Olschlager and Frank Marinero. If you have the opportunity to connect with them, to jump on a call, to pick their brains, we have over a decade of experience in the manufacturing world. And our mission is to unleash the potential in people. At ABay, we love enabling folks like yourselves to use the tools that you're already using just a little bit better, to get more out of a system, whether that's, let's say, Ecos, whether that's the energy you're using, whether that's QuickBooks Online, you name it. We're trying to help you use these tools and leverage more out of them. So that's me. You can probably tell a post I did on LinkedIn about building tools that build people. It's kind of my mission, my core value. And then some other things we put out there on LinkedIn, some new brewery KPI guide, diving into what you want to track and what frequency. If you have food offerings at your brewery, here's some metrics you'd want to track day in, day out, or whatever frequency we're talking about to see the performance there, to keep score on that. So all these guides are kind of the so what of keeping score, what metrics you want to track that are going to indicate success. You have merch, assuming most breweries out there have merch. What are you tracking day in, day out to to see if you're winning around your merch, to see what opportunities you might be missing. We have 3 objectives at ABay. Empowering people is our mission, but we want to build community. I forgot to put a QR code on here, but reach out to us if you want to join our benchmarking community, where we'll plot you against your peers on 4 or 5 different metrics, different KPIs, and see where you stand against your community. Doing that for free to just build out these resources that aren't really available right now. These are getting going, but we want to provide them. We want to help you understand where opportunities exist. Objective 2, kind of mentioned this a little bit, optimize existing resource usage, whether that's your tech stack, whether that's your data, whether that's your costs. We want to optimize, drive down, make you more efficient with your resource usage. And resource we use as a broad term. It could be energy, like a natural resource. It could be your data. Data is so powerful. We want to help you use it effectively. Now, the third objective is developing high-performing teams so you can continually innovate, so you can be that market leader that changes the direction here. All right, the power of keeping score is the next item here. So you can't manage what you don't measure. Famous Peter Drucker quote, maybe the founder of Lean Six Sigma, and just illustrating the power of keeping score. Like I said in my description of this seminar, professional sports teams, think about how much money they spend on a scoreboard. And really seeing if they're winning and losing every day for their customers, the attendees that are there. It's really hard for a brewery owner or myself, a small business owner, to really see if we're keeping score. So we don't need to spend $1 billion on it, like the Dallas Cowboys and their amazing scoreboard are, but let's spend some time and effort on building out what success looks like and keep score day in and day out. This is just an example of what this could look like, what we've built out for some other folks, kind of what the benchmarking community dashboard is going to look like as well. These metrics will change, but you want to see how you're doing day in and day out versus something, whether that's your budget, whether that's a 90-day target, whether that's a 5-year vision that you have. What does success look like, and what are you keeping score against? So if you're talking, March Madness, college basketball, the actual score of the game is, and having more points than your opponent is how you dictate success. Well, at a brewery, I'm going to talk about one of the fundamentals is building out a budget, is building out where you want to get to, those targets. So, total expenses, you want to build out what your budget is based on historical performance, based on things you might be doing. Well, your total expenses might be up 20% this year. Well, that's because you brought on more folks. You opened up a second, a warehouse for your distribution. So there's understanding that, your budget isn't just last year plus 5% for inflation. It's actually thinking through, what are we actually going to spend? How did we spend it last year? Then coming up with a budget or just targets, right? Like, what are we targeting? How do we dictate success in these areas? And then making them really user-friendly. So, you can customize it to which quarter. Looks like I'm a little lag here. Apologize. Which quarter you might want to look at, which, we're even doing 2-week timeframes for folks keeping score because, payroll cycles. The Thursday after payroll is complete, sending out their scorecard to show how they did for those last 2 weeks against budget. And then the ability to look, okay, let's do 13 4-week periods for the year. The ability to keep track, keep score for those 4-week periods instead of a month. So we get rid of months with 5 weekends, get rid of months with 3 pay periods, these stupid anomalies that just are part of, our calendar year. And I don't hate the calendar. Love August, favorite month. So next up, I've kind of leaned into this a little bit, but the fundamentals of keeping score and how you do it what you need in place to be able to track and monitor metrics or KPIs, key performance indicators, they're called. I might use those terms interchangeably today. Metrics are, let's say, total income or income on a Tuesday. That's a metric. Income between 12 and 3 o'clock, day in, day out. And your key performance indicators are those metrics that are indicative of success for a specific area. So for, let's say, your production facility, your production team, a KPI might be loss rate. Well, that's the indicator of success. Or you're really trying to push capacity. Well, tracking barrelage, on a 6-week running average, so you can, get over some of these humps and valleys. And okay, what is that number? That's our indicator of success. We need to hit, our target is 2,000 barrels over that, let's say a three-month time period is 2,000 barrels. Okay, how are we doing? How are we tracking against that if we're looking at that, 3-month moving average every week? So that's the key performance indicator, the indicator of success versus metrics. So you might have 4 or 5 metrics that influence that KPI. So I'll kind of get out of the weeds here in a second, but just the differentiation between metrics. Metrics around loss would be, or production would be, grain volume used. Other metrics around gravities, pH readings, kind of more day in, day out metrics to track performance versus that one indicator of success. All right, let's dive in. Grab some water real quick. Okay, the fundamentals to keeping score. I'm so guilty of this. I just want to dive in to the doing part. I want to just look at a metric, optimize around it, and improve. Well, we're finding at ABay that we need these 3 steps or these 3 fundamental items to be able to keep score effectively. We really need to first understand the why, the purpose of the business, the vision for the future, and the goals. Whether that's your 5-year vision and how your goals kind of map to that, or it's your 90-day like EOS. What is the Entrepreneur Operating System talks about 90 days. We only have 90 days that we can keep a focus on the future. So what are our goals for those 90 days? And how are we going to track against hitting those goals? So really having robust why and goals is number 1. Number 2, bottom right here, is trusting the numbers. So I'm going to walk through step-by-step process to build trust, but you can't keep score if, let's say basketball, like you talked about, well, it's 80 to 75, but there's a plus or minus of, 10 points on both teams. Well, what does that even mean, right? Like there's no confidence in the numbers where, like every time that ball goes through that basket, you can count, is that 3 points, 2 points, or 1 point, and you can add up. And there's repeatable way of tracking the numbers. And then everybody trusts that when that scoreboard says 80 to 75, that's the actual score, not, okay, we did our best, the game's done. Let's go back and recount and determine who won. So we really need to build this trust day in, day out of the numbers. I'll walk through some flows in a minute on that. The last piece is the performance dialogues, I'm going to call it. So once you trust the numbers and you're able to track and monitor total income or total production, let's stick with that for the last, moving average. All right, let's have performance dialogues around our actual production volume versus our target. And let's talk about why we're not meeting those targets and what we're going to do to meet them. We get rid of, I'll call a spade, get rid of excuses and get on to actions that are going to change the course. And in these performance dialogues, we need to take a look in the mirror. Are we using the same mindset that caused the problem, that caused us to not hit our target, to try to solve the problem? Like Einstein said, if you're using the same mindset to try to solve the problem, you're never going to be able to do that. So here's where performance dialogue, team discussion will really bring out the best in solving the problems and actually helping you reach the goals. So these three fundamental principles are essential for us to keep score. And that's what I'm going to harp on today. There's some great tools and resources out there to just, start keeping score or putting data into a system. Even like QuickBooks has great reports that you can see the numbers and you can download that. You can even have it emailed to yourself every morning. Ecos, Beer 30, Grist, any Arrived, Toast, Square, all these platforms have great reporting tools that you can get the data out of and see how you're doing day in, day out. I want to focus on these fundamental principles so you can actually use those numbers to drive the business forward. Another great tool, I forgot to mention Jeremy at Central Coast Analytics does an amazing job of putting the numbers together in a business intelligence platform for you to drive good performance dialogues. And I want to kind of bring these together, like ABay too. We build dashboards for folks. I showed you one already. But I want to discuss the why behind it and how we get to that final product here. So we got about 13 minutes left. So I'll dive into each of these and I'll give you some takeaways that you can use to start keeping score today. I was actually watching Julie's Not Your Hobby Marketing talking about those vision for the future, your purpose earlier today on CBP. I would highly recommend taking a look at that virtual seminar. But let's talk a little bit about core value or principle number one here of creating clear goals that align with your why. So everybody's got a good founder story, got a good vision for the future, but let's align on that and let's create the goals that are going to help you hit that vision. And then what metrics do you need to track? What KPIs do you need to track to make sure you're on course for that 5-year vision? So this, just keep it simple and start messy. If you're struggling with this and you've thought about your why, your purpose, your budgets and your goals, and you've thought about it and haven't been able to make one yet, start messy. Let's start with just total income. Everybody knows total income, right? It's right there in your point of sale or your QuickBooks Online. Start there. Just, okay, what did we do last year for total income in March for a week period? That's our goal for next week. Okay, we want to try to 1% better. Okay, let's do 1% better. And let's start talking about how did we do last week versus that target. Just start there. Start simple. And then you can get into these numbers of, okay, how much taproom revenue are we bringing in per barrel of beer poured? Or what is our production? And having these dialogues around there. But start simple and just grow. Get everybody familiar with the goals that you're trying to hit, what you're tracking it against, and keep evolving it from there. All right, so step 2. So we got our why, we got our goals that we're tracking against, and now we want numbers that we can trust. So if we're talking about barrels produced, and somebody might think we're talking about before loss, others after loss, and some might think we're doing the best we can. That's our goal versus, all right, what were our numbers last year? We're trying to hit that versus last 5-year average. And nobody's really clear on what we're tracking and what we're tracking against, then nobody's going to really value the discussion or really take anything away from it, or really trust the conversation. So I'll show you a quick little system or process map here. That's step number 2. But so step 1 to trust your numbers is building a system to allocate transactions and activity accordingly. And you want to make it repeatable and traceable for all numbers. And this is something that, there's a lot of accounting firms that do this kind of after the fact. I want, day in, day out, the system, whether it's, a transactional accountant on your team. We helped build this recently for one of our clients, just kind of creating a chart of accounts and creating the repeatability so people know where the numbers are coming from and going. If you're in QuickBooks Online, you can drill down into a number and see where it comes from versus a big journal entry of $100,000 that you had to move money around and nobody really knows. That's where we have to build trust in our numbers here. So that's a fundamental principle of keeping score, is having trust in your numbers and having it be repeatable. So step 2, you trust the numbers in the system you're pulling from. Now you want to create a map, a process map for data flows to get to those final KPIs. Make the system to easily pull data together. I love process mapping and getting everybody on the same page with where we are. So just real quick on to-go beers. Let's say we have an initiative like CVP talks a lot about of, maximizing every check amount, and one great lever to pull is to-go beer purchases. So if we want to track that, well, yeah, it might be in your POS, but you want to be able to maybe track it a little differently, track it against some other metrics too, like weather, for instance, or something. You want to pull it out of your point of sale and put it into a system that you can easily manipulate and use. But in order to keep that trust, you want to build a system that is repeatable. So, pull to-go beer purchase happens. Let's just use this example. The point of sale transaction happens. Data's in Toast, Square arrived, you name it. Then we can run a detailed sales report. Okay, for the last 7 days. We'll do this every Monday morning, run a report for the last 7 days. And you download that data as a CSV. And then even Google Sheets, collaborative, easy to use platform, import data, CSV, boom, put that data in. And then maybe you have an input tab, and then you have a couple other tabs that are running formulas based off of that CSV input. And then you're able to put just some easy visual tools of, weekly total to-go beer sales, and you have the last 8 weeks, just a bar versus your budget number of last year plus 1%, like we said. So you want to create these visual tools. We use Google Data Studio, Power BI, Tableau are great. Honestly, if you're going to do it yourself, just use Looker Studio or Excel or Google Sheets and the charting functionality. In my opinion, Tableau has been it's a awesome tool. If you spent your career in it, I wouldn't recommend just diving in if you're starting from scratch, because you can get a lot more value for the time, and it's a lot more user-friendly to use Google Data Studio, Looker Studio, interchangeable names. Create those visual tools, and then use that data as the backbone of your discussion, your performance dialogue, when you're keeping track of the score. So Miro, if you ever heard of that, great process mapping tool. If you download the presentation later, there's a link right to the website that you could process map. Now you trust the data that you have, the to-go beer sales. We hit $5,253 last week, and that was 10% higher. Well, now you want to have a great discussion around this data. Here's where the magic happens. You build the trust, you have clear goals. Now this is where you could see a 50% increase in to-go beer sales when you start here. You build these foundations and you have these great performance dialogues. This is what I talk about every day on LinkedIn, or a couple times a week now. But getting the most out of your meetings. So here's how you might do this and leverage the data to drive decisions. So schedule a meeting and actually have them. Meetings, when done right, I got an effective meeting guide down here on the right. When done right, they're incredibly powerful. When they're not done right, they're an incredible waste of time. So one way to have great meetings is role model the behaviors you want to see. Number 3, have a set of questions to continually refer to and use. So your people kind of get accustomed to what questions you might ask and what they're looking for. So when you come prepared to this meeting with the team, they might already have the answers and might, when they present the data, might account for that. 3, I like breaking meetings down to 3 distinct areas. One is the preparation, sending out the agenda, making sure the right people are invited to the meeting, and having everybody show up on time. That's the preparation. Then once you get in the meeting, now it's the in-meeting operation, I'll call it. This is the building psychological safety so everybody can speak. It's not talking at folks, it's actually listening. Great leaders are not the people that talk the whole time. So I kind of hate doing these webinars sometimes. I'm just talking at a green dot on my screen. But great leaders listen, they ask great questions, and be good role models in there. So having good in-meeting operation. And then the last bit of an effective meeting is the follow-up and the recap. So the end of meeting operation. Okay, who's doing what and by when? An email sent out to folks that might not have been invited to the meeting, but need to be informed of the meeting and its outcomes. So you have great discussion. Now don't let that go to waste. Have a good recap and follow-up from the meeting. What's the big deal? Kind of alluded to this a little bit. There's a massive amount of waste in meetings. $37 billion, company estimated, 225 million meetings daily. So I talk a little bit about this in our effective meeting guide. I'll skip over that. 3 minutes left here. So something I do want to share with everybody is steps to prioritizing KPIs that you can keep score with. I'm not going to dive into that here, but I will have this as part of our downloadable guide. There's a whole bunch of, I'll walk through each of the 5 steps in detail, but I want to get you to how to start today. So here's how you're going to create those fundamental principles in your brewery today, whether you're 100 barrels and you started yesterday, or you're going to start tomorrow, or you're 20,000 barrel brewery and looking to get to 40 in the next 3 years. Really, just going through these 3 core principles are going to help you keep score. And I'm sure if you're an owner of a 20,000 barrel brewery, you probably know how you're doing day in, day out. But I guarantee if you ask everybody on your team, they probably don't know what your goals are, how you're doing against them. So let's dive in here the next 2 minutes. Start simple and messy, like I said. Define success and what does great look like? And then what metrics are we going to use to define it? And build that trust in those numbers. For the metrics that define success, map out the data from collection to end usage like we did in that process map. Use Miro. Then align on how you're going to track. So is it going to be a daily one number? Is it going to be an average of the last 7 days, a weekly total, or a month average? So how you track is essential here. Then you want to continually improve that system, right? Like chop steps off. Don't need that metric. What about this metric? Let's continually improve it. And then the performance dialogues. Like I said, schedule a meeting bi-weekly at worst to discuss performance with management team. Send out the agenda ahead of time, and then align on what the goals are of each of those metrics, each of those KPIs, and then have a thought-provoking conversation. And here's that process I discussed earlier. And then my final takeaway, if you didn't learn anything today, it's look at this right here and take one thing away of those performance dialogues where you're talking about your data and your performance. Be vulnerable. Don't have all the answers. Build culture. So you want to help everybody understand the data and show that you don't know all the answers. You want to encourage disagreements. And most importantly, listen, and listen some more. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being part of this incredible community. I would highly recommend that you start being part of my discussions on LinkedIn and trying to share really valuable information with everybody out there. And then the left QR code is just for the guide or from all these slides I went through, and some of those I skipped over. Cheers to you and having a great week. Thank you so much for attending. I'll see you soon.